Hi everyone, I'm Stephanie Hutchin. I'm back here again to film my video on my first trimester with maternal PKU. I have a few things to show you and I've got some notes here, so if you see me looking away, that I'm just looking at my notes. So my first trimester, if you haven't seen my other video, in my introduction, I do a bit of a basic definition of what PKU is and what maternal PKU is, and my beginning journey of having and falling pregnant, including preconception diet and all that. So I'll try to link that video below, but if I have trouble with it and you'd like to watch that one, please visit my channel, subscribe, do a thumbs up if you like this video, and send me a message and I can upload that one for you as well. So just to begin with my first trimester, with pre-con, I explained that I was taking Express 20s, which is a Vitaflow formula for PKU. I was taking that one because it had no natural phenylalanine or protein in it. So I would take 4 of those a day. I was on 3 grams of protein a day, and I was also taking Elevit, pregnancy vitamins. And then in late April, I found out I was pregnant. I talk about in my introduction video about everything that happened just before I found out I was pregnant. I was in hospital with a cellulitis in my leg, so I was on a lot of antibiotics. My levels went really high, but I managed to get them in check pretty quickly before 6 weeks. So just to recap on my first trimester, I'm just going to go through some things like ultrasounds I had, what my levels were like, what apps I had, what medication I was on, and like my diary and all that sort of thing. So just to begin with, my first trimester was very similar to my pre-con diet. I was on 3 grams of protein to begin with. I was still on my Elevit. I was still taking 4 Express 20s. I was also taking fish oil tablets. So I'd take one of those a day. I also, when I hit about, I think it was about the 9-week mark, I started getting morning sickness that would last all day long. I had a pretty long run of morning sickness. I'm currently 26 weeks pregnant filming this today, and I am still getting morning sickness now. Morning sickness kind of hits everyone slightly different. Some people don't even get it at all. I found in my first trimester that I'd be a little nauseous in the morning, but I wouldn't feel like I was going to vomit. But come about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I was really bad. It got to the point where I had to get anti-nausea tablets, which I've got them here to show you. So these are the ones I'm still currently on. So with maternal PKU, the biggest thing is it's all about your levels, your phenylalanine levels. They get monitored on a weekly basis through a blood test that you get done, and they have to be between 250 and 70 is the Australian standard for that. So the biggest problem is because you have to take your formula. Like I said, I was on 4 formulas a day of the Express 20. They are a bit citrusy and like a bit of an acidy flavor to them, so they would make me very nauseous. They used to make me nauseous even before I fell pregnant, but I'd just eat something afterwards and I'd feel better. But since falling pregnant, I would have them and I'd want to throw up straight away afterwards. And if you were to throw up with morning sickness with maternal PKU, you have to then replace that formula. And that was probably one of my biggest struggles. So as soon as I started feeling nauseous, I told my GP, and she prescribed me with anti-nausea tablets to try to prevent me from throwing up, which worked really good through my first trimester. I think I only actually threw up about 4 or 5 times. So I was pretty lucky, but I was nauseous 24/7. Um, I pretty much was taking my anti-nausea tablets about 3 to 4 times a day. I had to wait 8 hours in between taking them, and I just found it wasn't like I'd be getting sick too much. So then my doctor suggested, well, take half a tablet every 4 hours. So that's what I do now, but it's not as bad as it was in my first trimester. I'm only getting nauseous at night time now, not all day. So I only take them now as needed. But then I was taking in my first trimester, I was having them on a regular basis, just to prevent me from throwing up those formulas and then having to replace it, because they're not the nicest tasting formulas in the world, unfortunately, but we have to take them, and we may have to make sure we get all of them in. So that's probably my worst symptom through my first trimester. I did get other symptoms, like I got very lethargic, I was tired all the time, I got exhausted, um, but I kind of just tried to push through, get what I had to get done. Um, that were probably my main symptoms. Like, I did get some other of your normal pregnancy symptoms. Got to get a sore back every now and again. Um, I get headaches, acne. In my first trimester, I used to get a lot of acne. I used to get pimples and cold sores and all that not so nice stuff when you're pregnant. My skin was really dry. It still is very dry now. But in my first trimester, it was pretty shocking. My hair was very dry and it was falling out. So they're just some of the symptoms that I got. There was probably a few more. I just can't remember off the top of my head right now. But they were the main symptoms I found. Another one was really thirsty. I would get such a dry mouth, I'd get short of breath, and I would be constantly drinking water 24/7, and I would still feel like I was dehydrated. Um, as for my PKU side of things, so I started out on 3 grams of protein per day. Every week, I would go up 1 gram, because as your baby develops, the baby needs more protein. So the general rule is in your first trimester, you will increase 1 gram per week, depending on what your levels were. Now, because I was in my personal journey, I was getting a lot of morning sickness, so therefore I wasn't eating enough. One of the main rules with maternal PKU diet-wise is that you need to have a lot of calories in your first trimester. It's all about low protein, high calories, and then gradually increasing the protein as you progress through your first trimester. Because I was sick all the time, I was eating the right amount of protein, but I wasn't eating enough calories, which was really hard for me because I was nauseous all the time. I didn't feel like eating. It's not that I was throwing up, I just wasn't eating enough. And due to that, around I think my 10-week mark, I'll just check. I have an app on my phone that I record all my Phe levels that I get from my blood tests. And I use a PKU app called My PKU Diet, which you can just get on the Google App Store, the Play Store, I think it's called. So in here you can see if that will focus. I've got all my Phe levels that I've recorded throughout my pregnancy on there. So when I hit, let's see, about 10 weeks, they came up to 400. So that was my first level over my healthy range for maternal PKU. From there, it went from 400, then it went to, my first one at 10 weeks was 340, then it went up to 400, then it went up to 552, and then it went up to 510. When I got that last one at 510, my metabolic team was starting to get a bit concerned, because obviously by then I was like 14 weeks pregnant, and they said if I couldn't get it down in my next one, there was a good chance I may have to go to the hospital and see if they had any drastic measures to get them back down again. Because to have your levels that high for that period of time, it does become quite dangerous. But they wanted to give me another week, so what they did instead is, so between that 5 to 10 weeks, I was increasing 1 gram every week till I got to about 6 grams of protein per day. Then my levels started going up due to not enough calories, and then they cut me right back to 3, and I was on 3 grams a day for that whole period up until I was about 15 weeks pregnant. At my 15 weeks pregnant, they decided to increase my express formulas by an extra one. So I was having 5 formulas a day. In that time, if my levels hadn't come back down, they would have classed me as, I could be saying this wrong, but I think it's pronounced catabolic, meaning that my level were just too high, and they would have had to do more drastic measures to get them down. But luckily, having that extra formula a day in that 15-week mark of my pregnancy, my levels did come back down by themselves, right down to 130. So from then on, they kept me around that 3 to 4 grams of protein per day just to see if they would stay there and stay in range, which they did. And from then on, I've been increasing 1 gram every week, right through to my second trimester, which I'm currently in now. But I will do another video on everything to do with my second trimester at a later date when I finish my second trimester. So I'm currently 26 weeks pregnant. I will show you a bit of a baby bump of my belly at 26 weeks. But this is more to focus on what happened in my first trimester. So that was a little scary at first because my levels just kept going up and up and up. Another thing that happened in my first trimester symptoms-wise was I got really constipated. And I was constipated for quite a long time. This might be a little TMI, but it got to the point where I actually had to go to my GP and ask her if there was anything I could take. Because being my first pregnancy, I didn't know what I could have because I was pregnant, but also I had to check all the medication I was having to see what phenylalanine might have been in them. So when I went to the doctor, she prescribed me with this liquid medicine to take for my constipation. So at the beginning, when it was really bad through my first trimester, I was taking it once a day. I started out on 20 mils for the first time and then 15 to 10 mils every day. After that, it kind of went away and it would come back again a couple of days later. So when that started happening, I just kind of took it when I needed to take it. And that bottle, I've still got a little bit left in there. So I have had to have it quite a few times. As I said before, the other medication I was on was my Express 20s. I was still on my anti-nausea tablets. I was also taking Elevit and fish oil tablets. So these are the fish oil tablets I was taking. I just got the big bottle. I went for the odorless ones because I was getting nauseous all the time. A lot of smells would kind of trigger that. And a lot of people say when you have pregnancy multivitamins, they can also make me feel nauseous. I didn't really have a problem with that, with the Elevit and the fish oil, since it was odorless. It was just more my PKU formulas that would make me nauseous. Sometimes I just couldn't even stand. I'd have to hold my breath taking them because I just couldn't stand the smell. But besides that, that's majority of the medication I was on in my first trimester. with maternal PKU, because it is automatically classed as high risk due to the metabolic disorder, they do more ultrasound. So I had an ultrasound at 4.5 weeks. It's too early to do the dating scan, so I had another one at 9 weeks to get the dating scan, which they found on my due date would be the 29th of December 2019. After that, I had another one at 12 weeks, and then another one at 16 weeks, which that 16 weeks one will be in my second trimester video, so I can give you more of an update on that one then. Besides that, just like I said in my introduction, during pre-con diet, I kept a food diary in the first trimester. I had to record everything I was eating. I didn't really have to count calories. My dietitians took care of that. But definitely in that period where I wasn't having enough carbs and calories and stuff like that, my dietitian would actually do me up an eating plan of what she wanted me to eat, and I stuck to that. She was really helpful, and if I ever had any questions or needed her help about something, I could just email her and she could tell me everything I needed to know. So that's just a basic recap of what my first trimester was like with PKU and pregnancy. If you have any questions, please leave a message down below and I'll get back to you in more detail about any questions you might have. I might even do a Q&A video if I get a lot of questions. So yeah, I just thought I'd film this and let people know out there my personal journey with maternal PKU, because I know there's not a lot of information out there about it, and definitely not a lot of videos. That's one thing I noticed when I first fell pregnant. I wanted to get as much information as possible, but there wasn't much out there, so that's why I decided to create this channel. One last thing I'll leave you with in this video, a lot of people asked me in my first trimester, like family and friends, was what are the chances that my children would have PKU. Now with PKU, both parents have to carry the gene. My husband hasn't personally been tested, but we have come to the decision that if we end up having a kid with PKU, we know how to look after it, as I've grown up through it, and things today are a lot better medical-wise. With PKU, there's new treatments out there for children now, new formulas, there's a lot more food available for us, so we weren't too worried about that. But just for a basic overview for people that are wondering this, so all my children will definitely be carriers of PKU gene, due to the fact that I have it. If my husband does have the gene, it's still a 50-50 chance whether we'll have a child with PKU or not. With my parents, they obviously both had the gene. I was the last child out of 3, and my 2 older sisters don't have PKU. It's only me. So there is a good chance that my children won't have PKU, but if he does carry the gene, well then there's only a 50-50 chance that we'll have children with it or not. But my children, because I have it, will definitely be carriers of the gene. So yeah, just a little info there. If you'd like more information about that, please leave a message and let me know. Otherwise, please subscribe to my channel and give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and I'll catch you next time in my next video. Thanks, bye!